Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Rahmini. I'm going to continue the next material. It is about procedure. For the first, we need to know the definition of procedure according to the expert. According to Jeremy Harmer 2001, describes procedures as an ordered set of techniques. They are the step-by-step measure to execute a method. Here are the summary of definition of procedure. The first, it is an ordered sequence of techniques. And the second, a procedure can be described in terms such as first you do this and then you do that. And the third, it is a smaller than method. And the last, it is bigger than technique. So procedure is still related to method and technique. Method is the practical realization of an approach. Methods include various procedures and techniques as part of their standard fare. And technique is a superordinate term to refer to various activities that either teachers or learners performed in the classroom. And next, about taxonomy of language teaching techniques. Brown illustrates a taxonomy of techniques adapted from Crooks and Caudron, 1991. Here he indicates he used the term technique to what was referred as activity by those theoreticians. Those such as taxonomy is divided into three categories. The first, controlled, the second, semi-controlled, and the last, free. He asserts that techniques move from a manipulative to a communicative dimension. That is, when it is manipulative, the technique is absolutely controlled by the teacher with a predicted response from students. For instance, drilling, dictation, and reading aloud are typically controlled. When talking about communicative, learners' answers have an open-ended nature in which the teacher has less control, and therefore students interact in a freer and spontaneous form. The first authors to propose this taxonomy were Crooks and Caudron. It was centered on classroom observation done by Caudron with the purpose of displaying a list of activities grouped into three levels of teacher and student control with respect to the performance of the activity. Likewise, the point out that the topic and the teacher's goals can vary the degree of control. So in this slide you can see the concept of control, semi-controlled, and free in taxonomy of language teaching techniques. And the next, here are the examples of controlled, semi-controlled, and free. For the first, control, the example of control are drill, dictation, and copying. Drill is typical language activity involving fixed patterns of teacher prompting and student responding. Dictation, student writing down orally presented text, and copying, students writing down text presented visually. And the second, the examples of semi-controlled, there are dialogue, info transfer, and brainstorming. Dialogue is about reading or listening passage presented for passive reception. Info transfer is about transfer information from one mode to another. And brainstorming is a form of preparation for the lesson. And the last, free. The example of free are problem solving, drama, and interview. Problem solving, the students try to solve their problem in studying lesson, drama, plans dramatic rendition of play, sketch story, etc. An interview, a student is directed to get information from another student or students. Next, various procedures in language teaching. The next is about various procedures. There are 7 procedures in language teaching. PPP, ARC, III, OHE, ESA, DES, and the last PTL. We are going to discover the understanding of them in the next slides. For the first, PPP stands for presentations, practice, and productions. The teacher introduces a situation which contextualizes the language to be taught. The students practice the language using accurate production techniques such as choral repetition, individual repetition, and cue response drills. Michael Lewis suggested that PPP was inadequate because it reflected neither the nature of language or the nature of learning. Next, ARC stands for authentic use, restricted use, and clarification and focus. According to ARC, most language in the classroom can be described as either ARC. In other words, communicative activity will demonstrate authentic use. Elected dialogue or guide writing will prove restricted use of language by students. Finally, clarification language is that which the teacher and students use to explain grammar, give example, analyze errors, elect or repeat things. Okay, the next triple I. Triple I stands for illustration, interaction, and introduction. McCarthy and Carter, 1995, argue the need for a step away from the 3 units to what they term the 3 is illustration, interaction, and introduction. Where illustration means examining real data in specific context, interaction means using consequentness, raising activities designed to focus on the interpersonal use of language and the negotiation of meaning. And introduction, encouraging students to notice the different functions of the lexicogrammatical features. Next, OHE stand for Observe, Hypothesis, Experiment. OHE procedure of lexical approach resembles triple I. OHE was developed by Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis claims that students should be allowed to observe, read, or listen to language, which will then provoke them to hypothesize about how the language works before going on to the experiment the basis of that hypothesis. Next, ESA stands for Engage, Study, and Activate. Engage. 3 models of ESA will usually be presented in any teaching sequence. Engage. This is the point in a teaching sequence where teachers try to arouse the students' interest. And study refer to activities where students are asked to focus on language and how it constructed. And activate, this element describes exercise and activities designed to get students to use language as freely and as communicatively as they can. Next, DES stands for Deep and Strategy. Kate Johnson suggested the DES as an alternative whereby encouraging the students into immediate production, you turn the procedure on its head. The extreme of the deep end strategy is to set tasks and ask students to perform. And next, PTL stands for Pre-task Task Cycle Language Focus. This procedure was developed by Prabhu Jan Willis. Task-based learning is a language learning method popularized by Prabhu while working in India. Prabhu figured out that his students could learn language just as easily with non-linguistic problems as when they are contracting on linguistic questions. Okay, the next 3 dimensions to a method at the level of procedure. At the level of procedure, we are concerned with how these tasks and activities are integrated into lessons and used as the basis for teaching and learning. 3 dimensions to a method at the level of procedures. The first, the use of teaching activities to present, clarify, and demonstrate language. To present new language and to clarify and demonstrate formal, communicative, or other aspects of the target language. And the second, the way in which particular teaching activities are used for practicing language. And the last, the procedures and techniques used in giving feedback to learners. Giving feedback to the concerning the form of content of their utterance of sentences. Next slide is about example of the procedural aspects. This is the example of procedures. The first, the teacher points at meaningless symbols on a wall chart. The symbol presents the syllables of the spoken language. The student read the sounds aloud, first in chorus and then individually. And the second, the teacher moves to a second set of charts. After the student can pronounce the sound, the teacher moves to a second set of charts containing words frequently used in the language, including numbers. The teacher leads the students to pronounce the long numbers. And the last, the teacher uses colored rods together with chart and gestures to lead the students into production. The teacher uses colored rods together with charts and gestures to lead the student into producing the words and basic grammatical structures needed. Okay, I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.